Today, I'm welcoming a beautiful friend of mine that I have had the privilege of knowing for far too long because it shows our age, to be honest. Amany is here with me today. We actually worked together in Sydney a long time ago, like 10 years ago. Is that right?
About that, yeah.
Has to be. And I actually remember your first day when you came into the school that we were teaching at. I do remember. No, it had nothing to do with glasses or anything like that. That's not what I remember. That's truly not what I remember. And I'm not entirely sure. I don't have any kind of like profound story for why I remember like meeting you and seeing you, but I just do. And I'm delighted that we're still connected all this time later. And I'm delighted that we're getting to know each other in such a new way, because life has thrown each of us some pretty fast and nasty and dirty curveballs. And so that's what we're here to kind of open up and share on today. So thank you for saying yes to the opportunity to have your story kind of be a catalyst for this conversation. And welcome.
No, thank you. And I'm very nervous to be here. I'm going to say that again, but I'm excited to be here. And like you said, I remember you, Lena, and I was magnetized to you back then. And I just thought there's something about Lena. I have to be her friend. And I think I followed you around a little bit, need to talk to her. But yeah, that's my first memory of you.
You know what I think like it is? I moved around schools a lot as a child. So I'm always hyper aware when somebody comes into a new environment and they don't know anybody. It's like it's my personal mission in life to welcome people and have them feel like seen.
Yeah.
I hate seeing somebody come into a space where they don't know anybody and they're kind of standing against the wall. So I probably was up your ass more than you being magnetized to me, you know?
No, you made me feel at home at that school. And I was like, I'm forever grateful for that. So thank you.
And thank God we don't live there anymore. Let's just say that. We won't make that a conversation about, employment and workplace has been and gone, but we will make this a conversation about life kind of co-creating realities with us that we probably wouldn't have chosen for ourselves. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Now, Amany just celebrated, acknowledged. What would you say? How would you say what has just occurred for you in the last week? The words around grief and loss of a loved one, and I will have this in the show notes, but if you've missed the show notes, I will give a trigger warning that this episode is going to be about loss and death. Anything else that I should highlight, Amany? Do you think that?
Probably mental health, because that might come up. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Beautiful. So do you want to, in your words, kind of share what you have been moving through just in the last week?
Okay, this last week marks the 10-year anniversary of my mum's passing. Now, although it's been 10 years, it feels like it's just happened. And I call it's an anniversary. That's the only way I know how to speak of it right now. I don't see it as a celebration yet. I don't see it as celebrating her life yet, because it never has gotten easier. The grief around losing my mum has never gotten easier because of the way that she passed. And so I don't see it as something, I don't see it as celebrating her life yet. And I do hope one day that I can get there, but I just see it as an anniversary. And the 10-year anniversary, it's a big one.
I just honor your courage in just owning it and not bypassing it and trying to sprinkle glitter over it and make it kind of seem something that it's not for you. To stand in your grief and say, no, this fucking sucks, is actually so courageous and so brave. So I thank you.
Thank you.
I think people need to hear it, because I think there is this kind of, in our culture, this push to kind of transform everything really quickly and to find the silver lining and to, have a positive mindset around everything. And to hear someone validate 10 years on, this shit still doesn't feel easier, I think is going to feel like a big exhale for people that maybe feel like they should be rushing their healing because they're falling behind.
Definitely. The thing with grief is is sometimes for a long time you will feel like you're okay. But like I've told you, this anniversary wiped me out. Like, I did not expect it. It was this elephant that just stomped all over me. And people need to know that it's going to show up again. It's not like, okay, well, she passed away 10 years ago. Let's close that book. Let's close that chapter. Moving on. No, it's here all the time. Just waiting. It's lurking. I call it like the lurker, the stalker that just, okay, you feel like you're doing fine now? Let's pop in and say hello.
In somatic healing, we would talk about feeling your emotions and cultivating the courage and the resourcefulness to turn to face the feelings. So it's so interesting the way that you're describing it as lurking. The visual I get is like it's just, over your shoulder, and we're trying to live our lives by kind of distracting ourselves to see anything other than what we're truly feeling. Do you want to talk about the ways that distracting ourselves from really honoring what is also there? And I want to say that anybody that is experiencing grief or loss or sadness, that's not who you are. It's not the whole of who you are. It's something that you are experiencing. It's one aspect of you. But do you want to speak to how exhausting it can become as a person who has an awareness that there is something there that they're not willing to face, or they don't know how to face, or they don't want to face? How exhausting that becomes living a life that is kind of distracted and disassociated.
Well, it is exhausting. Okay. Many times I feel like when something happens, I'll give an example. When something happens, like it could be anything. It could be someone's cut me off, or actually, this is a good example. I was driving the other day on the M5, and it wasn't overly busy, but there was traffic around, and this guy jumped in front of me without indicating, almost, hit me, whatever. And I put my hand on that horn and just for a good 10 seconds kept it there. And my sister's like, you can take your hand off the horn now. I think he gets the point. I was like, no, he's cut me off. And she's like, you need to calm down. Like, it's not that big a deal. I'm like, it is a big deal. Anyway, when I thought back over it, I was like, I'm not actually angry that he cut me off. It has nothing to do with him, because Sydney driving is rubbish and people cut you off all the time. What I was angry about was my grief. Like, I was on the way to the cemetery to honor mum, right? That's what I was angry about. And I still get angry about why me, why my mum. It's exhausting always having to figure out, am I really angry at this thing? Or is it something else to do with mum? Or is it something else to do with dad? Because both of my parents have passed. I don't talk about my dad's passing yet because I'm not in a place where I feel comfortable enough yet. That's still raw. But with mum, it has been 10 years and I can get to that place. So back to my original point, is it's exhausting. I'm always trying to work out, okay, I've overreacted here. He didn't need a horn for 10 seconds. I'm dealing with Sydney traffic every single day. What else is going on here? Oh, okay, it's the grief. It's shown up again as this thing. But because I haven't dealt with it, I hadn't acknowledged it. It comes out in other ways. It came out during the driving. It comes out in, I don't know, a fucking guy didn't respond in a text message and I'm so pissed off right now because I'm sad and, it's never going to work out. And once again, I've been abandoned. That comes out. Because the way that my mum passed was she passed away in her sleep, right? And that felt like abandonment. So anything and everything always leads back to the grief. It's exhausting, always trying to figure out, okay, number one, I've overreacted. Why have I overreacted? What's really going on here?
I love what you're sharing. This is really powerful. I want to give analogy for people to understand exactly what you're sharing. To be triggered, something has to be lying dormant within us. Something has to be planted. And we get to see the triggers as the fertilizer or the water, if you be, just cultivating and growing the seeds that are already planted within us. So the reaction, the trauma response, is just symptomatic of whatever is kind of lying dormant within you, waiting to be nurtured and seen. Can I ask you?
Yep.
When you have that moment of awareness, so you kind of bring yourself out of the trauma response, the reactivity has kind of happened, that moment where you honk the horn really loud and you wake up back into the moment and you're like, oh, fuck, I have acted out a little bit here. And you have that kind of moment where you kind of realize, this is probably a reflection of trauma response and it's probably linked to my grief. Is there a secondary suffering about remembering that you have to carry that grief and an anger around that being within you?
So much comes up with secondary suffering, because it's not just the grief of losing my mum. What I've struggled with now is I haven't lived with a mum for 10 years. I don't know what that feels like. I feel like I've been robbed of 10 years. You know, everyone's always like, oh, we did this for Mother's Day, we did that. Like, I don't even have a conversation with mum to refer back to. I have some words of her wisdom, but there's nothing there. Like, I have no new memories to draw upon. And so the secondary grief is the life that I've lost. The secondary grief is the life that I'm going to miss out on. She's not going to be there to meet my husband, my future children, any other milestones that I might reach. There's so much in grief that people don't actually realize. You know, I've lost relationships with people because of the grief. I've lost relationships with family. And I say family, but clearly they're not family. If you've deserted me after my mum's passed, how is that family? And there's also a loss of identity. Like, who am I now? Who am I now without a mum that, like, it's almost like, this is how my brother describes it. A tree, right? And so trees have roots into the ground, and the bigger the tree, the bigger the roots. So when we lost mum, one root was cut off. And so we've kind of, you know, we're still the tree, but that part of our identity was gone. And that's the major loss, the secondary major loss, in that we've lost this. This is my identity. Who am I now? Yeah, I'm still my mother's daughter, but I don't have a mum anymore. And how can I start to fill that gap of that identity loss?
And then I can only imagine, even if you try to, the kind of guilt and shame that rises up within you in being like, is it kind of disrespectful to her? Am I minimizing her impact and importance if I do try and fill that gap and I do try and stand without her?
In the beginning, it was guilt and shame, right? But I've realized there's nothing that can fill that gap. As much as I've tried, and I've tried and tried, whether it be other mother-like figures. You know, I tend to gravitate now to older women that I can chat to, right? And I connect with them more than I connect with people my own age. And for a long time, I didn't see it as, you know, I'm trying to fill this gap or this void, but that's what it is. If I gravitate to, I have a friend that's 60 years old, and like she's got so much wisdom and everything, but people look at us and like, what's the connection here? We don't get it. Like, you don't need to get it. I might fill a gap for her, I don't know.
That was going to be my question. Yeah.
But for me, and I've told her this, I see you like my mum, like that older woman that I can turn to and get advice from. So I have tried to fill the gap. In the beginning, I did feel guilt and shame. But it was through counseling where I was able to see, well, you don't have to feel guilt or shame about this. It's a natural response. Guilt and shame, they're emotions, but they're not your only emotions. Now it's just, I'm always aware that there's a gap and I know nothing will ever fill it, but I do gravitate towards qualities in people that kind of fill that motherly component for me.
My heart hurts as I hear you saying this, because I feel like your story is symptomatic of just our culture and how binary and individualistic it is. And how in another world, in another time, I would love to feel like when there is loss in someone's nuclear family, the community kind of rallies around them and never replaces, but just supports in making that gap feel less raw and exposed. I think it's really sad that we isolate people in their grief because we get uncomfortable.
Big time.
Do you want to speak to that, the experience of that?
Can I just say, there is a community, I think it's in India, that actually, when someone passes, they stay with the grieving family for 40 days. Now, okay, 40 days doesn't seem like a long time, but when you're here in this Western society and someone you know, like for me, the grief, my mum passed, I had people in my face for 7 days. And I count the number of days because that's when, after 7 days later, we buried her. We had the funeral, and then that was it. That was it. I didn't get phone calls. I would get maybe random text messages from people saying, you know, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And then if I tried to open up, or if I did open up, their responses would be short or blunt. I had a friend once, she asked me how I was feeling, and this was face to face. And I broke down, like I just started crying. I didn't even answer the question. You know, usually I would fluff about it because I knew I was so shaky. But I broke down and I started crying. And she just kind of patted me on the shoulder and she said, "You'll be right. You'll be right. You'll be right." Like, I understand that people don't know what to say, but you'll be right. Like, for me now, I can't ever imagine someone saying to someone, "You'll be right."
And the deeper truth kind of feels like none of us feel all right anyway.
Exactly. Like, but it was that moment that I realized, shit, I'm in this all on my own. No one's got the time, the emotional capacity, or the patience, or be willing to sit with this hurt for me.
Yeah, I think it's the resourcefulness. This isn't something that we're taught. It's not something that we're modeled. This is why these conversations are so important for people to hear what it's like. Because unless
100%.
you've lost somebody, you don't know. You don't know. And it's going to be a unique experience for everybody, of course. But there is this sense of tiptoeing around and eggshelling. And even as I was introing you, I was like, fuck, am I already saying the wrong thing and being insensitive, you know? So it is just people like you who come forward with their story and talk about it that almost like normalize that, you know what, it's okay to talk about. And the person in front of you might cry and their voice might wobble and it might be deeply uncomfortable for both of us, but it's going to feel better for having done that. Can you speak to how even the worst experience of relating to your grief in a way that is like painful and is tied to suffering is better than gaslighting yourself and pretending not to experience it all?
So, oh my God. Because I felt isolated, I then started to sweep my feelings under the rug, right? So I always, if I felt sad or if I felt angry, it'd always be like, okay, well, yeah, you're sad and you're angry, but really there's so much more suffering in the world. Like, honestly, you've got a roof over your head, you've got a great job, you've traveled so much, you've been to all these beautiful countries, you've got fabulous friends. What are you so upset about? And so I would just sweep it under the rug.
Judge yourself for it.
I would judge myself for it. But and so I never acknowledged that shit, what I've been through is actually, it is fucking hard. Because I've never really had the opportunity. I've never had anyone say to me, what you've been through is hard and I'm here for you. So I never said it to myself. Because I live a privileged life, don't I? People say, well, she's traveling, so clearly she's not affected by this. But no one actually knew that I traveled a lot, so I could escape my feelings. I'm always hopping on a plane, and I love the experience of going to a new country, experiencing their food and all of that. But really, what I've learned over the years is I've just been trying to avoid the feelings. I've been trying to fill a gap by traveling.
It's like activating main character energy in a different story. The one where you aren't the girl whose mom died,
Yeah. Well, when I'm traveling, no one knows who I am. No one knows that story. So I don't have to pretend. I don't have to acknowledge. I don't have to, relate to that girl in any sort of way. I'm a traveler like everyone else. Sometimes I go to different countries and put on an accent just so I can be in the experience.
This is why I love you. And why not? Yeah. This is such a complex conversation. It is so layered.
Yeah, there is so much to grief. It is.
Can I just say one thing before I forget to say it? Because what you have shared is so profound, and it really highlights the work of somatic experiencing, in that we've not been given spaces and opportunities and invitations to allow ourselves to be in the embodiment of the parts of us that are really confronting. Our anger, our regret, our despair, our guilt, our shame, and yet they exist within us. And if we're given the opportunity to actually be in the full expression of that, I think the perception is, well, if I really acknowledge how I'm feeling, then I'm going to feel like that all the time. Or I'm going to identify with that feeling and I'm going to know how I really feel. And so I'd rather live in denial and distraction and disassociation and pretend that it feels better here. But what this conversation is highlighting is it does not actually feel better over here. Right? So being taught and being led and being supported in actually experiencing the truth of what exists within you is the only way to begin the healing journey. Like, we can't begin healing unless we're willing to feel what needs to be healed, and allowing yourself. I know we had a conversation last week where I was saying to you, like, you get to say, this is so fucked up and I hate this and I'm so angry about it. And to be in almost like step one of processing it is to acknowledge, like, I did not choose this for myself. This is happening to me and I don't want it to be. And so much in bubblegum spirituality is in convincing us, like, everything is happening for a reason. And, be grateful for every experience because it's making you who you are. And I think the reality of our experience in this life, in this world, is that a lot of the time that just doesn't ring true for us. And a lot of the pain that we are experiencing is inevitable because that's the nature of life. Pain is inevitable. Inevitable. It is inevitable. And we're all going to experience pain in multiple ways throughout this lifetime, inevitably. There's nothing that we can do to avoid that. But being resourced and supported in learning that our pain doesn't have to result in suffering for our whole lives, I think is the only way out, is the only guiding light for us, you know? I can't imagine ever looking at somebody like you and saying it won't hurt one day. That just doesn't seem realistic to me. What would that say about the way that we love and the way that we remember others and the way that we feel and we process? But it does feel possible to me to say you won't always be suffering like this.
Yeah, because there is a distinction between between pain, and there is a distinction between suffering. With grief, sometimes you don't feel the difference because obviously pain and suffering go hand in hand. But
you're left to suffer in your pain. You're isolated. You're shamed for it. Go and do that in private.
Mm-hmm. It's even like, because you're shamed and people don't want to hear it, they don't want to know, they don't have the capacity for it, then you start to shame yourself. I would get so angry, Lena, like so angry that I felt like my insides were on fire. Like, why are you so angry? Like, I would shame myself. You can't be angry. This is not acceptable. What are you angry about? You've got nothing to be angry about. But the more I shamed myself, the angrier I got. Like, it was the weirdest thing. But as soon as I said, okay, well, you can be angry. Be angry. You want to be angry right now? Be angry. And then I started this little thing where I would punch my pillow, right, just to get out the anger. And it's like the anger went away. I was like, oh, okay. If you acknowledge it, it goes. But we don't, as a society, no one gives you the space. No one gives you the tools, the resources, unless you go and see someone. But your day-to-day people kind of feed into your day-to-day people. I don't know how to articulate this. They don't want to see you. It needs to be invisible. Don't come to me with your crap. I've got my crap. Don't come to me with your crap. They
enable like the freeze response, don't they?
Yes. Perfect. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I can see that. That they want to believe that you're better so they don't have to carry the weight of not knowing how to make it better for you.
Mm.
And I think in our culture too, there's a place for everything. But I think a lot of the way that we deal with mental health and people going through anything challenging is like top down. Like, let's intellectualize it.
Mm.
And I don't know about you, but I'm at a point within my experience of self and just my own healing journey that I realize I actually can't intellectualize my own healing. I appreciate everything that I understand, and it's been a necessary component for me to have read all the things, listened to all the things, do all the workshops. But I'm at a place now that I know it's not more information that I need, it's more embodiment, it's more experiencing. Do you want to speak to that?
You know what? So I could say for the last 10 years, I've studied grief. I've read all the books. I've watched all the YouTube clips. I've started even studying counseling to become a grief counselor. And the more knowledge I have has just shown me that this past, couple of weeks where grief has knocked me out again, the more knowledge hasn't actually helped. It has not helped. Like, okay, I can give you the theory on grief. I can give you the stages, and I know, okay, right now I'm in the denial stage again, and I can, sit here for a little bit and just deny that my mum has passed. It's been 10 years, but I can still deny it. But like you said, I need to embody it. And I think for me now, the only way forward is to start embodying it, start feeling it, start acknowledging it. It needs to become my best friend again.
Transforming it in some way, right?
Yeah. So it's not so in my head, but really like coming from within, from my heart, like feeling the emotions. If I'm sad, let's be sad. We don't need to say, okay, well, I'm sad because of grief. If I want to be sad, let's just be sad. If I want to be angry, let's just be angry. If I want to feel fucking ripped off and like, you know, I've been dealt a shitty card, then let's feel that. It doesn't need to be because of grief.
Drop the story. Feel the feeling, drop the story. Feel the feeling, drop the story. Absolutely. Because it's a story that we get hooked into, isn't it?
It is a story that we get hooked into. But I feel like I don't want that to be the story anymore.
Or the whole story, or the whole story.
Or the whole story. It's a good way of saying it, because it's part of me. It's happened. I can't change anything about that. But I can't continue to just hold on to that and think everything in my life is because I lost my mum. It can't just be that.
The other day you mentioned something that I'd like you to speak to. We were talking about grief and anger and those sorts of emotions, and how it can be an invitation to compassion. How something like grief can crack your heart open in a way that actually makes you compassionate in a way that you can't imagine ever have being able to feel or process or offer in the world had it not been for the experience that you had been through. Can you speak? I know grief has taken so fucking much from you. Can you speak to what you feel like it has also offered you?
You know what? Grief has made me a freaking empathetic person. And when I see, it doesn't have to be if they've lost someone. It can be anything. If someone comes to me and, you know, my friend, actually, I won't say that. If whatever thing.
About anything.
Yeah. I can now put myself in their shoes. And though I haven't experienced it, I can feel with them. And I can just sit with them. Because I know what it feels like to feel so fucking isolated. You know, I'm not the first person to have lost someone. And, you know, you're not the first person to have gone through a divorce. But when someone comes to you and they're offloading something to you, for me, it's, I need to acknowledge this person. I need to acknowledge their suffering, and I see their suffering in whatever it is. It's, I don't know how to explain it. It's because I've seen the worst in life, whatever anyone comes to me with, while it might not be the worst thing, it's still the worst thing for them.
Yeah. It's real for them. So sometimes in the literature, it will say we're experiencing something and it feels so real, but it's not absolute truth. And I think when you've been through an experience like you have, and like I have to some degree in different aspects of my life and stories that still remain untold, that might be true. What the literature says is true. What you're experiencing is real, but not absolute truth. We know, though, how real it fucking feels in the moment. And the understanding and the intellectualizing and understanding, okay, this is not absolute truth. There is this and there is duality. I understand all of that. I get it. But my God, this feels so real and all-consuming right now. When you can relate to that in somebody else, I don't have words. It's ineffable, which means there are no words to explain the way that your heart is cracked open and the compassion that you have for another person.
It really is ineffable. Like, because for that person, it is the end of the world, whatever it is. They've got no words to say. Like, they don't want to be told, you're not the only person that's gone through this. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, yeah, it's fucking hard. It is fucking hard. Whatever you are going through, it's fucking hard. Holding space for another human I think, is probably the greatest gift that we can ever give anybody else. Because we all carry some sort of hurt. Everyone carries a hurt, whatever it is.
All of us, we are, sorry to cut you off, we are all at war within ourselves, with ourselves. All of us, every single person.
And if someone tells you they're not, they're lying.
Listen, if someone tells you that they're not, that they don't feel discomfort every day within themselves, you know, that's a whole other conversation. That's a symptom of the culture that we're living in. That's a symptom of the way that we have been
conditioned
and hoarded into a state of psychosis. You know, the true reality and the true nature of lived experience and life is there is pain, and we are all in discomfort, and that we are all at war within ourselves, and that we are all being asked in this life to orientate ourselves back to our true nature, which is love, joy, kindness, compassion. But fuck, that's hard.
It is fucking hard, isn't it? It's so much easier just to be in your hate, in your misery, in your suffering, than it is to be in love and compassion.
And there's a place for all of it. And that's, I said it earlier in this episode, we don't have to rush our healing. It's not a race to get there. It doesn't make you a better person because you've been able to access wisdom or compassion or love before the next person. Everybody's journey is completely unique to them. Everybody's timeline is completely unique to them. So in no way is it ever okay to be saying to someone, what you're going through right now is setting you up to be who you really are. Like, I just feel like that kind of language is just so harmful in a lot of ways, because it just makes us feel like we're wrong to be experiencing ourselves in the way that we are in the moment that we're in.
100%. It's really saying to people that your emotions, what you're feeling, is incorrect. You can't feel that. Stop feeling like that. Move on. Get over it. Let's go. You cannot feel. That's what it's really saying. And that damages people. When you tell someone that you can't feel what you're feeling, that causes problems. Like that was me. I was told to be strong. What does be strong mean? Do you know what it means?
I think in our culture, it means pull yourself together, fall into line, be more digestible and palatable and less disruptive to the order that we're trying to keep.
And so I translated it as, stop crying. There is no need for you to cry. This is how life works. Okay, your mum died. She was young when she died, but this is what happens. This is the natural order of life. So be strong. That translated as stop crying, stop feeling, stop this, stop that, which eventually led down a path of, not acknowledging anything. And I was depressed. And wanted to kill myself because I did not acknowledge.
Yeah.
It's like, when you tell people that what they're feeling is not real, what the brain does is it translates that into something that you can understand. And for me, that was, be strong means don't cry. Don't cry means don't show emotion. Don't show emotion. Well, everything built up and just got to the point where I was suffering. I was in deep depression. But I couldn't tell anyone because no one wants to hear it. No one wants to know.
You shared something so profound the other day that I think is going to help people so much. You were sharing with me, I hope you don't mind me saying, it doesn't feel like it's too much of an exposure here, but you were saying that often when you feel depression within you and your body and you're not giving yourself the space to kind of be with the emotion, release the emotion, the way that you give that relief and release to yourself is by letting yourself off the hook in other areas. So it could be something like, you know what, I feel like shit, rather than be with the emotion and do the work of that, I won't go to the gym today. And you have that moment of like, it's an exhale, like, oh, there's a bit of relief. Do you want to speak to that and how that actually deepens us in our depressive hole that we find ourselves in?
So I haven't been to the gym in about a month, right? But consistently. So I've been like 1 day a week. And it originally started and I was like, you know what? I just need a break today. I'm not going to go today. And then it was like the next day came. I'm not going to go today because, it's all right. I'll go tomorrow. It's fine. And then it just kept getting, I'm not going to go because, I feel really shit today, so I'm not going to go. I feel really sad today. I'm not going to go. I feel really sad, like I almost feel depressed. So I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do what I usually do because that's going to make me feel better. And I don't want to feel better. I just want to stay depressed right now. I want to sit on social media and just scroll. Fuck, scrolling social media made me feel even worse. But yet I could not put my phone down and get out of it because I wanted to stay in that misery for a little bit.
It's depression, my friends. Yeah.
Like, I know the things that make me feel better, I was avoiding them because I wanted to stay in the misery.
And it's wanting to stay in the misery. And what I'm going to add to this conversation is that I think those little allowances that we give ourselves feel like a little bit of relief. It feels like we're giving to ourselves in one way. We know that something has to be done about the way that we feel, rather than being resourced or plugged in to our ability to actually be with emotion, process emotion, release emotion. We only know to distract, to disassociate, to allow ourselves to feel relief through, it might be denying ourselves an experience, isolating ourselves further. Some people go the other way. We turn to food, drugs, alcohol, other people. We all have our demons, right? We all have the shit that we do that actually doesn't serve us in any way when we feel depressed within ourselves. And I just think it's important to highlight, just as a reflection prompt, for us to just be aware when we're in those moments that we feel really low within ourselves. And the language that irritates me, because I think it's harmful, is when people say, oh, listen to your body. And if you don't feel like doing anything, you need to rest. It's okay to rest. And rest definitely has its place. But when a body is depressed, disassociated, down, that body's not holding wisdom for us in terms of the inspired action we should take. That body's holding wisdom in showing us, hey, bitch, I need some attention. I need some nurturing. There's some stuff right now that is so heavy that I feel compressed in a way that I can't even move right now. So please do something. And the something isn't disassociate further. The something isn't deny yourself of the things that you know uplift you and make you feel good, right? The something is being resourced, supported in a way, whatever that is for you, whether it's bottom up, emotions up, or top down, head down, psychology down, whatever it is, to do something. To actually take action. And if you find yourself that the action you're taking is withdrawing yourself, isolating yourself further, not doing things, right? You just bring some awareness. Obviously, it's not a blanket rule for everybody, but I don't know, I'm not backwards in coming forwards and saying, stop that shit. Stop it. Stop it. I know you went and saw Marianne Williamson during
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, so much came up, but I don't actually remember what came up because she spoke so fast. And I remember feeling ignited by her.
Yes.
And she was, oh my goodness, like, I've got no words for her because it was just so exciting.
Cool. And when somebody says they have no words, that is an ultimate activation experience. That's beautiful. That means you received it with your inner being received it, not the intellectual part of you that's trying to just like process everything in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I did receive it because when I woke up the next morning, I'm like, shit, this is why this is happening. This is why I'm suffering in my grief. This is why it's wiped me out. And I remember I'm like, I have to message Lena. but my brother was arriving and I was like, I need to get in. I can't text and like when the car's moving. So, but yeah, there was so much in it. And you know what? To be in a space where there's people there that get it, that understand that what she was saying, literally all you could hear around you is
Everyone's necks are sore from nodding. Yeah.
Exactly. Just like, and looking at my friends going, oh my God. Like it was an experience.
That's a beautiful way to round out this conversation. Just reminding everybody that there are people that are weird just like you.
Oh, 100%. Just like me, hey?
It's true. And to reevaluate where you are positioned and who you're asking for support from. Not to judge anybody or make them wrong or make them shit, but to just assess the resourcefulness and the capacity and the willingness that the people around you have to actually be the support that you are worthy of at this stage.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it comes down to. And if you don't find yourself with people that can support you, you need to, I know it's easier said than done, but it's finding people that support you, that are weird like you, or that have space to hold whatever it is that your story is.
So we're very hard on social media. I'm a big advocate for what it actually allows and opens up. It's like portals have opened to us. Because for anybody that says it's hard to find community or people, it's not. Come on. Enter a Google search, go on YouTube, hashtag whatever it is you think you're experiencing alone, and guaranteed there's at least somebody who is willing to kind of, I don't know, just say, yeah, just like me too. And it's such, sometimes that's the relief that we need to be like, fuck, I thought this was a me thing, but it is more universal than I thought. My experience of it is unique to me. My experience of it is real, but this is universal. And I think these conversations are so important to me, because I think whether we have lost a mother like you, we have all lost something. Something has happened to all of us in our lives where you wake up one day and everything has changed and there's nothing you can do about it. And now you have to face this new reality that you would never have chosen for yourself. Everybody can relate to that. That's universal.
100%. Everyone can relate to the feeling of having the rug pulled out from under you. Whatever it is, whether it's through loss, whether it's through, heartbreak, whatever it is, money loss, everyone has woken up one day with that feeling of, oh fuck, what the hell? What is this? And what do I do now? Everyone had that moment in life. They might not relate to the loss, but they will relate to, shit, what do I do with this now? How do I cope?
Does it seem too simplistic to want to remind people that we're bigger than our pain? Does that seem too simplistic?
No, because we are bigger than our pain. We are bigger than our pain. Like we said before, it's part of the story. The pain is part of the story, but it's not the only part.
Holy fucking shit. I'm so glad we recorded this. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
No one is going to believe that this is the first time that you've recorded on a podcast.
Oh my goodness. I'm just giving my nerves a chance to settle.
What has this shown you in being part of this conversation? Because I don't know about you, but this has felt really good to me. This has been really...
I did say at the beginning, I was extremely nervous, right? But I do feel really good right now, in that I'm speaking about this and if there's, hopefully it will reach someone where they'll go, oh fuck, like this person gets it, or these people get it. And that's all that, that's basically my mission in life, is just to speak so that people don't feel isolated. And I do feel good about this.
Here's a question for you, because in my ideal dream world, people would be listening to you, have related to you through their own story, but maybe they haven't lost a loved one, but they know somebody who has, and they're thinking, oh, this person should really listen to this podcast. But then they hesitate because they're like, But am I being like a Debbie Downer if I send them this podcast about grief right now? What if they're having a good day? How do they go about sharing a resource like this?
This is a great question because it has come up before where a friend has said to me, I don't want to speak to you because I don't want to upset you. Just the simple fact of sending someone a resource acknowledges that I don't know what you are going through, but this might help you a little bit, will help that person immensely. Right? I've had friends send me links to things on YouTube about people speaking about grief. And they've said, hey, I can't remember the exact wording, but it would have been something like, I don't want to upset you any further, but I came across this video. I heard something in it. It might resonate with you. It's about grief and loss. Have a listen when you get a chance, when you're in the right headspace for it. Let me know what you think. That's just something like that, right? And that for me, when I received that, I was like, oh my God, this person's actually thinking of me. And that's all we want, is like to know that, okay, you don't understand my suffering, but you've thought about me enough to send me this link, to send me this resource and say, I don't get it. Here's somebody that gets it. Have a listen. I don't want to upset you even further. We're upset all the time. Like we might be crying all the time, right? But here's another thing that might help you. And I think just putting it out there, and putting it out there is better than not taking any action, because if you don't take that step, your friend or whoever might feel like, oh shit, no one cares for me. I'm in this, I'm alone. But just by simply saying, I came across this, I thought of you, that lets that person know, shit, they actually do care. They care about me immensely.
All right. You heard her. Get on it. If at all during this you thought of somebody who you thought this would resonate with them, go for it. Have the audacity to be that weird friend that is like, hi, I love you. Pop up out of nowhere. Be poetic. Be poetic in your own life.
That's it.
Truly. All right. Thank you so very much. If anybody wants to specifically contact you to thank you for your vulnerability and your courage today, even if it is just thank you for stepping forward with your story.
Yeah.
Or they want to share something that they're going through, or they know that you're a person that it would feel supportive for them to be in conversation with as they're processing whatever it is they're going through. What is the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Probably on Instagram. Yeah. I think it's Amany_SAL111.
You say it to me as if I'm supposed to hold on. Right now, I will put it in the show notes, but I'm always an advocate for saying it because I think it plants a seed in our, yes, Amany, that's AMANY_SAL111. Alrighty, my love. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you, lovely.